Picture this for a second. It is December 24th, 2016, Christmas Eve, right? You are an entrepreneur, but you are definitely not celebrating.
Oh, man, I already know where this is going.
Right. Instead, you are sitting there just scrunched up in a tiny miniature children's chair in your girlfriend's parents' spare room.
The absolute worst place to be during a crisis.
Exactly. You're surrounded by these dolls staring at you with toothy grins. Your laptop is literally burning your knees, and your funds have just been frozen by a payment processor because of irregular activity.
Which is just terrifying. That's a nightmare scenario.
It really is. And as a precaution, you are wiring the absolute last of your cash, like $22,000, to pay an employee out of your own pocket just so he can feed his pregnant wife.
Wow. Talk about putting it all on the line.
Yeah, and you check your bank balance after the wire clears, $1,036. That is it.
That is just the absolute definition of a rock bottom moment. I mean, it's that terrifying scenario for anyone who has ever tried to build something of their own, right?
Totally. And yet, this incredibly stressful, isolating moment is actually the catalyst for our entire deep dive today. So welcome back, everyone.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're taking a look at a systemic problem that, honestly, almost every business owner faces at some point. And we are applying the theory of constraints to it.
Specifically, we are targeting the market demand constraint. Okay?
Yes, Lee. We're exploring insights from Alex Hormozi's book, 100 Minimum Offers. So our mission today is to unpack how to completely obliterate that demand constraint for you.
Right, by shifting away from being just another commodity and transforming your services into what he calls grand slam offers.
Which I love that term. We are going to look at how to shift the focus entirely from price to value, basically creating a category of one where people genuinely feel stupid saying no.
I mean, that's the dream, right? Because the really insidious thing about commoditization isn't just that prices drop.
Right, it's worse than that.
Exactly. It's that it trains your customer to view you as just a line item on a spreadsheet rather than, a real human being solving their acute problem.
Yeah, because when your product is available from a dozen different places, the purchase decision just becomes entirely price-driven.
And the cheapest option wins by default, which initiates this brutal race to the bottom where the marketplace just drives prices down.
Through fierce competition, yeah.
Right, until the profit margins are just bare bones, just enough to keep the lights on.
Which basically means the business owner becomes a slave to their own business. You are working endlessly just to break even.
It's exhausting.
It is. But to escape that trap, the text introduces this really compelling analogy. Like, as entrepreneurs, we gamble every single day, right?
Oh, for sure. We gamble our capital on inventory, rent, labor, marketing, all of it.
But there is a massive structural difference between gambling in business and gambling in a casino. Because in a casino, the odds are mathematically stacked against you.
Right. You can play a perfect hand of blackjack and still lose because the house always has the edge.
But in business, the text points out that you can actually improve your skills to shift those odds. You can literally become the house.
And you do this by creating that grand slam offer we mentioned.
Right.
It's this combination of an attractive promotion, an unmatchable value proposition, premium pricing, and just an unbeatable guarantee.
You essentially create an offer so compelling that you rig the game in your favor. You start selling in a vacuum.
Exactly.
So let's ground this in some real-world math from the text just to make it concrete. Let's look at a lead generation agency for local brick-and-mortar businesses.
Okay, a classic example.
Right. So the old commoditized way, the way everyone else does it, is charging a $1,000 upfront fee and then $1,000 a month on a retainer.
Which looks like every other agency offer out there.
Exactly. So response rates to their ads are dismal. They might spend $10,000 on advertising, get a tiny fraction of a percent to actually book a call, and close maybe 5 clients.
Ouch. So they collect $5,000 up front, but they spent $10,000 to get it.
Yep. They are operating at a massive loss just to acquire customers, just praying those customers stick around long enough on that monthly retainer to eventually turn a profit.
It is a stressful, slow grind that absolutely destroys cash flow.
Totally.
But now, contrast that with the Grand Slam offer model. This agency completely changes the structure of their pitch.
Okay, so what do they do differently?
Well, instead of a standard monthly retainer, they tell a client, pay one time, just cover the ad spend. We will generate the leads. We will actually work the leads for you. And you only pay us our fee if people actually show up to your business.
Oh, wow. That is a huge shift.
Right. And they add Plus, we guarantee you get 20 people in your first month or your next month is completely free.
That is wild.
And then they stack the value even more by throwing in daily sales coaching for the staff, tested scripts, audio recordings, all of it.
I mean, the psychological shift for the buyer there is massive. You can't even compare that to the $1,000 a month retainer guy.
No, it's night and day.
Yeah.
But the fascinating part is that the fulfillment, like the actual marketing work the agency's doing behind the scenes, is largely the same.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they just differentiated the offer so heavily that the prospect stops comparing prices and starts evaluating a unique, high-value solution.
It forces a completely different conversation. But, I mean, the obvious question here is, how does an agency afford to take on all that risk with a massive guarantee without just going bankrupt?
That is the million-dollar question. The secret is that making a bold guarantee actually forces the business to build better internal systems.
Oh, I see.
Right. Because if you guarantee 20 walk-ins or you work for free, you are suddenly highly motivated to build the best lead follow-up system in the world.
Right. You can't afford to be sloppy.
Exactly. The guarantee fixes the demand constraint on the front end, but it also forces operational excellence on the back end, which drops the agency's actual risk close to zero over time.
That makes a lot of sense. But even with a bulletproof Grand Slam offer, you still have to put it in front of the right people, right?
Oh, 100%. An amazing offer means absolutely nothing if no one is around to buy it. We have to know exactly who we are presenting this to.
Right, because a great offer fails without demand. And the text gives us what might be like the ultimate rule of market demand, which is we are not trying to create demand. We are trying to channel it.
Channel it, yes.
The book uses the COVID-19 toilet paper shortage as just the perfect visceral example of this.
Oh, that is such a great example.
Right. During that initial panic, supermarkets didn't need a slick sales pitch. They didn't need a competitive price. They didn't even need a guarantee.
No, people were willing to buy single rolls of toilet paper for just exorbitant amounts of money simply because the crowd was starving for it.
Exactly. If the demand is acute enough, a business can have terrible marketing, terrible operations, and still print money.
Which really highlights the prerequisite nature of demand. I mean, think about the cautionary tale of Lloyd from the text.
Oh, right. Lloyd.
Yeah, Lloyd was a natural-born salesman, just incredible interpersonal skills, great zero-risk revenue share model. But he struggled for years, barely scraping by.
And why was that?
Because he was directing all that talent to the newspaper industry, right? Exactly. A market that was shrinking by 25% every single year.
You're just fighting a losing battle at that point.
Completely. But then COVID hits. Lloyd pivots. He starts an automated mask manufacturing company.
Wow.
Yeah. And using new tech, he brings the cost per mask down below what people could buy them for from overseas. Within 5 months, he is doing millions per month.
That is insane. Same guy, same innate talent, just a completely different market.
And it forces us to acknowledge a really tough reality for a lot of founders, which is that the market actually matters more than the entrepreneur's natural talent or the product itself.
That is a hard pill to swallow for some people.
It is, but you can have the best product in the world and be a genius marketer. But if you are selling into a dying market, you are basically running up a down escalator.
Yeah, it's pointless. The text really highlights that you must find a market in desperate need of your abilities.
Specifically, you want a growing market that has common unmet needs falling into one of 3 core categories.
Right, which are improved health, increased wealth, or improved relationships.
Exactly. If your offer doesn't tap into a starving crowd looking for one of those 3 things, you are going to struggle no matter how perfectly crafted your pitch is.
But let's say Lloyd finds his starving mask market, right? If he priced those masks at $100 each, that starving crowd would just, well, they'd starve.
Sure.
So how does the crowd's hunger actually dictate the price tag? That seems like it requires mastering that delicate relationship between price and value.
It does. We really have to define what value actually is to the consumer here. The text quotes Warren Buffett, who famously said, "Price is what you pay. Value is what you get."
I love that quote.
It's classic for a reason. The core operating principle here is that people only buy when they believe they are getting a deal.
Right.
They have to believe the invisible value they are receiving is worth significantly more than the tangible cash they are giving up.
And the second that equation flips, like the moment the perceived value dips below the price, they just stop buying.
Instantly. Which leads to this massive warning in the text about trying to solve a demand constraint by simply lowering your prices.
Right, because As the marketer Dan Kennedy points out, there is just no strategic benefit to being the second cheapest in the marketplace.
Not at all.
But there's a massive strategic benefit to being the most expensive. Lowering your price is basically a one-way road to destruction unless you have some revolutionary technological advantage that makes your costs a tenth of your competitors.
Which almost no one has.
Exactly. We cannot compete on price. We have to systematically increase the value.
And increasing value isn't just about adding more hours of work or, throwing in more physical items. It's about shifting perception.
Yes, perception is key.
The text introduces this profound framework for this called the value equation. It is basically a mathematical way to look at human desire.
Okay, let's break this down.
So on the top of the equation, the numerator, you have the dream outcome multiplied by the perceived likelihood of achievement.
Right, so let's look at that top half for a second. The dream outcome is what the customer actually wants. Not the plane flight, but the vacation on the beach, right?
Exactly. Not the gym membership, but the six-pack.
And then the perceived likelihood of achievement is just how confident they are that your specific product will actually get them to that outcome.
Right. Like, if you are a surgeon with a 99% success rate, your perceived likelihood of achievement is massive compared to a first-year medical student.
Which is exactly why the experienced surgeon commands a wildly higher price for the exact same physical procedure.
Spot on. But the real secret to the value equation lies in the bottom half, the denominator.
Right, the stuff you want to reduce.
Exactly. You divide that top half by the time delay multiplied by effort and sacrifice. Time delay is just how long it takes between buying the product and getting the result.
And effort and sacrifice are the ancillary costs, right? The pain, the inconvenience, the habits you have to give up.
Yes, all of that friction. And this is where so many businesses get it wrong. They spend all their time trying to make the dream outcome sound bigger and better.
Right, they just hype it up.
But mathematically, if you want to increase the total value of your offer, the absolute most effective thing you can do is drive the denominator down to zero.
Decrease the time it takes to get the result. Decrease the effort required.
Yes. Think about Amazon. Amazon didn't invent new products. They didn't change the dream outcome.
No, they just drove the time delay and the effort required to buy those products down to almost zero, right? With one-click ordering and 2-day shipping.
Exactly. And they became one of the most valuable companies on earth because of it.
It is such a brilliant way to approach offer creation. But let's look at how a business owner practically runs this as a mental exercise on their own service, which might be, kind of boring.
Sure.
The text uses this divergent thinking exercise about selling a brick. If you were just selling a standard brick, you are competing with every hardware store in the world on price.
Right. A brick is a brick.
But you don't just lower the price of the brick. You sit down and ask, what is the customer's actual nightmare? Let's say you are selling tax preparation, the ultimate boring, commoditized brick.
Very true.
You ask yourself, what is the dream outcome? Keeping more money. What is the nightmare, the ultimate effort and sacrifice? Getting audited and spending hundreds of hours fighting the IRS.
Oh, yeah, that is a nightmare.
Right. So instead of selling tax prep for $300, you sell audit-proof wealth protection.
I like the sound of that.
You promise to do their taxes, and if they get audited, you guarantee to represent them for free and pay any penalties caused by your errors.
Wow.
Yeah, you just massively increase the perceived likelihood of achievement and drop their potential effort and sacrifice to literally zero. And you can charge 10 times more for the exact same core tax prep work.
And that works because perception is reality. It doesn't actually matter if you objectively decrease the time it takes them to get a result.
Wait, really? It doesn't matter objectively?
Well, that improvement only holds value if the prospect actually perceives it.
I see.
Right. A grand slam offer only becomes valuable once the prospect recognizes and fundamentally believes in that decrease in effort.
And if perception dictates value, then we have to learn how to manipulate the perception of our starving crowd to make them even hungrier.
We have to master the psychology of desire.
Yes. There is a quote in the text from Naval Ravikant that just perfectly captures the tension of wanting something. He says, "Desire is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want."
That is such a heavy quote, but it's so true. And the strategic application of that idea is profound for a business owner.
How so?
Well, it means that humans only deeply want things we do not possess.
Yeah.
The very second we acquire the thing, the burning desire for it begins to vanish.
Right.
Therefore, if you seek to increase demand, to really increase that desire, you must deliberately decrease or delay satisfying it.
Which sounds completely counterintuitive to everything we were ever taught about business. Like, why on earth would a company intentionally sell fewer units than they are actually capable of fulfilling?
It sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
But let's look at the workshop example from the text to see the mechanics of this. Imagine you are hosting an industry workshop.
Okay.
Scenario 1. You sell 10 spots for $500 each. You make $5,000, and you completely satisfy all the demand in your immediate market for that workshop.
Everyone who wanted a ticket got one.
Exactly. It sounds like a successful launch, right?
Yeah.
Until you try to run it again 3 months later.
Because you satisfied all the demand, there is no pent-up desire left, just crickets.
Exactly. Crickets.
Yeah.
Now look at scenario 2. Instead of selling 10 spots at $500, you offer just 2 highly exclusive one-on-one spots for $5,000 each.
Wow, okay.
You still make $10,000.
Yeah.
You actually make double the money with a fraction of the fulfillment work. But more importantly, you just skimmed the very top of the market.
And you left the other 8 people who were willing to pay $500 with completely unsatisfied desire.
Yes, they wanted in, but they couldn't get in because it was too exclusive, too expensive, or just sold out.
You basically manufactured pent-up demand.
Exactly.
Right.
So the next time you launch a mid-tier product, those 8 people are going to be absolutely ravenous. They will be watching your every move so they don't miss out again.
The text calls this the Hormozi law, which is the longer you delay the ask, the bigger the ask you can make. The longer the runway, the bigger the plane that can take off.
I love that visual.
Yeah, you have to systematically keep the supply just slightly under the demand you're generating to keep that golden goose alive.
It is this elegant dance of supply and demand. Because if you satisfy all of it simultaneously, you just don't know where your next meal is coming from.
So how do we practically restrict that supply without just ignoring our customers and making them mad?
Well, a Grand Slam offer relies on specific tactical levers to artificially decrease supply and crank up urgency. And the primary lever is scarcity.
Right, scarcity.
Yeah,
Which is simply fixed supply.
exactly. It's explicitly telling the market there are only a finite amount of these available. It triggers this deep, almost evolutionary fear of missing out.
Oh, FOMO is real.
It really is.
Yeah.
Think about a musician who drops a limited edition hoodie. If they announce they only made 100 units, and they will destroy the design files so they can never be printed again.
Oh man, the desire for that hoodie skyrockets compared to just a standard shirt that is always in stock on their website.
Because the idea that you can never get it again makes it infinitely more desirable.
There's a story in the text where Hormozi himself actually realizes the sheer power of this dynamic.
Oh, the consulting story.
Yeah. He had spoken at an industry event, and afterward, 2 different people approached him, both offering him $50,000 for a single day of consulting to help them scale their operations.
And his reaction is what makes the whole story. He turned them down flat.
Right. Not because he was playing some complex negotiation game, but because he was already making more than $50,000 a day in profit from his own software business.
He genuinely didn't want the distraction.
He truly didn't need their money. And that created this authentic, to quote the book, zero fucks given vibe that is absolutely impossible to fake.
It really is. When you truly do not need the exchange, you hold all the power. Rare problems have very few capable solvers, which makes the solver incredibly valuable.
And while, for you listening, you might not be able to fake a $50,000 a day profit margin overnight.
Right. That takes time.
Yeah. But you can use naming and packaging to recreate that sense of exclusivity and fresh demand. The text refers to this as the wrapper.
Yes, the wrapper.
The book talks about how simply changing the name of an offer can completely re-stimulate demand without you having to change the core product at all.
It's all about presentation.
It mentions using alliteration and rhyming to make things memorable. Things like the free 6-week Lean by Halloween challenge or the bikini blueprint.
Catchy names.
They are, but I actually have to push back hard on this concept, though.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Realistically, if a customer buys the, 90-day rapid healing intensive and realizes the program is just basic squats, deadlifts, and drinking water, won't they feel cheated?
That's a fair point.
Like, how do you prevent this clever wrapper from just becoming a superficial bait and switch?
It's a really crucial distinction to make. It isn't about tricking the customer. It's about specificity and psychological buy-in.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Remember the denominator of the value equation, effort and sacrifice. When a customer buys a generic personal training package, their psychological compliance is incredibly low.
Right. They might show up, they might not.
Exactly. But when they buy a highly specific wrapper tailored to their exact pain point, like a postpartum core restoration protocol, their compliance skyrockets.
Oh, I see, because they feel like it's made just for them.
Precisely. They follow the instructions better because they believe it is designed specifically for their unique situation.
So the wrapper actually improves the dream outcome because the perception of the highly specific name increases their own effort and dedication to the program.
Exactly. A generic program gets a 10% compliance rate. A hyper-specific wrapper gets an 80% compliance rate.
Even if the core physical movements are exactly the same.
Exactly. The wrapper changes the exterior perception, which changes the customer's behavior, which ultimately delivers a vastly superior result.
That is fascinating. You force the prospect to evaluate your offer in a completely new light.
It shifts the demand curve in your favor because it feels new, specific, and tailored exclusively to their nightmare.
It stops them from scrolling and just forces them to pay attention. You aren't just another personal trainer. You are the bespoke solution to their specific acute pain.
Exactly.
Let's zoom out a bit and summarize the structural shift we've been exploring today, because for you listening, we started in that soul-crushing trap of commoditization, where you are faced to race to the bottom on price just to survive, terrified of losing a client to someone charging $5 less.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And we learned that to escape, you first have to find a starting crowd, a growing market with acute pain in health, wealth, or relationships.
Right. And from there, you have to maximize the gap between the price you charge and the value you deliver.
Using the value equation.
Exactly. You use the value equation to aggressively drive down the time delay and effort required for the customer, remembering that value is entirely based on their perception of those improvements.
And finally, you have to expertly tease the supply. You use scarcity, fixed allocations, and hyper-specific naming wrappers to build that ravenous pent-up demand.
Right, because by meticulously stacking all these elements into a grand slam offer, you don't just temporarily patch a market demand constraint.
No, you build a highly profitable category of one where you finally become the house.
It really is the ultimate framework for decoupling your time from your pricing, ensuring you just never have to compete in a race to the bottom again.
It fundamentally changes the physics of a business. But before we wrap up this deep dive into the theory of constraints, I want to leave you with a lingering thought.
Oh, I love these.
So we've talked extensively today about how human desire relies on not having what we want, right? We desire the result, and according to Naval Ravikant, once we achieve it, the desire vanishes.
Right, the contract is fulfilled.
Exactly. But a business's ultimate goal, especially with a Grand Slam offer, is to provide extreme value that perfectly and rapidly solves a customer's problem.
Right.
So, what happens if a business fulfills its ultimate promise too perfectly? Like if you permanently and completely eliminate your customer's most painful problem on day one, driving that time delay and effort to absolute zero? Do you destroy your own future demand by leaving them with nothing left to desire?
Wow.
Or do you create a customer so intensely loyal and transformed that they become your ultimate unstoppable marketing engine? Something to chew on as you craft your next offer. Until next time.